The tin cups smelled like truce, recycled air, engine grease, disinfectant that never won. A cracked hollow sign above the bar flickered between tin cup and tin cu underscore like even the letters were tired. A human sat alone at the counter, hunched over an oversized datapad. Thin wrists, dark hair in his eyes, fingers stained with ink. His mug steamed with tea, because of course he'd ordered tea. A worn leather marker strap clung to the pad, its edges darkened as if heat had licked it too often. Behind him, Doc Mooks laughed too loud in a back booth. "Bookba's back," one jeered. "I dare you to sit next to him." The human's shoulders tightened, but he kept reading like words could make him invisible. The door cycled open. The room didn't go silent. It went careful. She entered with calm momentum, tall, striking, athletic curves held in disciplined grace. Midnight blue skin caught the harsh light and returned it luminous, like moonlit stone. Obsidian scales traced her cheekbones and shoulders like natural jewelry. Long dark hair fell in soft waves with a faint metallic sheen. Two polished horns curved from her head like a crown. Her amber eyes, slit-pupilled, swept the bar without hurry. Not cruel. Inviting in a dangerous way. She walked straight to the human and slid onto the stool beside him. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, already seated. The human looked up, eyes wide. His mouth opened-closed. I brought you a drink," she said, setting a second mug down. The bartender hadn't been asked. He'd simply moved. The instant she settled, she felt it. Heat. Not embarrassment. Not body warmth. A wrong, furnace-deep heat rolling off the human in waves, prickling along her scales, pushing sweat to her temples. It hit like standing too close to an open reactor hatch. She leaned back a fraction. The heat eased. The human swallowed. "Did I take your seat? I can move." "No," she said too sharply, then smoothed her tone. "What's your name?" He blinked. "Elias." She studied him, fragile-looking, exhausted around the eyes, hands gripping the datapad like it was a shield. "My name's Nyra," she replied. Elias glanced at her horns, then away fast. "Why are you talking to me?" Nyra nodded toward his projection. "What are you reading?" "Old dialects," he muttered. "It's boring." "It doesn't look boring," she said, and watched his fingers twitch toward the scorched leather strap. From the booth, a Merc's laugh tried to restart, and died when nobody joined it. Nyra kept her gaze on Elias. "You're burning," she said quietly. Elias froze. "And nobody else can feel it," she added, because his face already answered. A long beat. Then his shoulders sagged like something heavy finally had a place to rest. "You can feel it?" he whispered. "Like a forge in my bones," Nyra said. Elias's eyes flicked down to the darkened leather marker, then back up with something like fear and relief tangled together. "Then you're the first." The heat pulsed stronger, as if whatever lived inside him had heard and approved. Under Nyra's boots, the deck plating gave a faint vibration, deep, distant, like a sleeping machine turning over. Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. This wasn't random. This was recognition. "How long?" she asked. Elias swallowed hard. 3 years. And it's getting worse. Behind the bar, a panel light flickered twice, too perfectly timed to be coincidence. Nyra felt the station listening. And she realized, cold and certain, a lock had just noticed its key. Elias's confession hung between them like steam that wouldn't dissipate. Nyra didn't rush to fill it. She watched his hands, how they trembled when he tried to steady them on the datapad, how the scorched leather straps seemed to tug his attention like a habit he didn't notice he had. "Does anyone know?" Nyra asked. Elias let out a thin laugh. "Everyone knows I'm odd. Nobody knows I'm burning." His gaze flicked over the room, Mercs, station workers, a mixed couple pretending not to listen. "If I tell a medic, they'll file it. If I tell security, they'll contain it. If I tell a friend..." He swallowed. "I don't have many of those." Nyra's jaw tightened. You're not contagious. Elias blinked at her certainty. Nyra nodded to the leather marker. That. Your mother gave it to you. He touched it reflexively. Yes. And she had the same thing. Elias's throat worked. She called it the bright. Like life burning too fast. It started in her 20s. She lasted years. Then months. Then, his voice thinned. Then days. Nyra's scales along her collarbone prickled as the heat pulsed again, stronger, like it disliked being spoken about. Around them, the tin cup's lights dimmed a fraction, and the bartender glanced toward the back wall with a sharp, uneasy frown. Nyra followed that glance. Behind the bar, beneath a layer of newer panels and cheap neon, the bulkhead plating looked older. Too smooth. Too clean. Like someone had sealed a seam, and then tried to hide the fact it existed. Nyra didn't stare. She let her eyes slide past it casual. Then she leaned closer to Elias, voice low. Your heat is making the station respond. Elias's eyes widened. That's impossible. Most important things are, Nyra murmured. Do you ever feel drawn to a specific place? Like a wrong itch in your bones? Elias's fingers tightened on the datapad edge. I dream about corridors. Doors. Pedestals. It's stupid. It's not, Nyra said, and the certainty in her tone made Elias flinch like he wasn't used to anyone believing him. A scrape came from behind. A dockmerk, one of the booth men, had stood up. He swayed slightly, drunk courage wobbling his posture. His eyes were on Nyra's horns with something like resentment. Hey, he called, trying to sound amused. Blue lady. You scaring the human? That's not polite. Nyra didn't turn. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, Sit. The merc hesitated, an instant of rebellion. Then he sat, as if the word had gravity. A few patrons went very still. Elias stared at Nyra like she'd just rewritten the rules of air. Nyra finally turned her head enough to meet the merc's eyes. Her amber gaze was warm in the way a heater coil is warm. Comforting until you touch it wrong. Don't, she said. The merc looked away first. His friends pretended they hadn't seen. Elias exhaled shakily. How did you? Later, Nyra said. She slid the second mug toward him. Drink. I'm not. Drink, she repeated softer. Elias lifted the mug with shaking hands. The tea steam curled up and vanished into the station's tired air. He sipped, and his shoulders eased by a fraction, as if the act of obeying a simple instruction gave him something he hadn't had in years, structure. Nyra watched the bulkhead again, the older plating under the neon. The station vibration beneath her boots had shifted into a slow, steady thrum. Something awake. She reached into her coat and pulled out a thin strip of reflective polymer, a sensor wafer. She slid it under her palm on the bar, as if she were just resting her hand. The wafer flashed amber, then red, then amber again. Elias leaned closer, curiosity overriding fear. What is that? Nyra didn't take her eyes off the wall. A lie detector, she murmured. For architecture. Elias frowned. Architecture doesn't lie. Nyra's lips curved. It does when someone pays it to. The wafer pulsed again, and a faint line appeared in Nyra's peripheral vision, a seam that wasn't visible to the naked eye, running vertically behind the bar. Nyra stood. Elias jerked. Where are you going? Nyra slid her hand down and caught the scorched leather marker strap between two fingers, lightly, careful not to tear it. With you, she said. Elias's eyes went wide. What? Nyra leaned closer, voice almost conversational. If that seam is what I think it is, corporate will want it shut. And you're the only one who makes it open. Elias swallowed. Nyra, I don't want trouble. Nyra's gaze softened, barely. Elias, trouble already found you. You've just been sitting still so it can burn you slowly. The door to the tin cup cycled open again. Not one person entered. But the air changed, charged, tense. Nyra's eyes flicked to the reflection in the bar mirror. Two figures in station maintenance gray had taken positions outside the entrance, just visible through the glass. Too still. Too alert. Elias followed her gaze and went pale. They'd been watching me. Nyra's hand closed gently around his wrist. Not possessive. Anchoring. Then we stopped letting them, she whispered. She guided Elias behind the bar before the bartender could protest. He opened his mouth, then caught Nyra's eyes and decided not to argue with the storm. Nyra pressed the scorched leather marker against the older bulkhead plating. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the burned edges of the leather flared with faint amber light, and the seam behind the bar unstitched itself with a sigh like something waking. Cold air spilled out. Mineral, ancient, not recycled. Elias stared into the dark opening, breath fogging. I've dreamed this. Nyra shoved him gently forward. Then dream with your eyes open. Behind them, the tin cup's front door slammed as corporate boots hit the floor. A voice barked. Security oversight, freeze! Nyra stepped into the hidden passage after Elias, horns barely clearing the frame. The wall began to seal behind her, metal sliding like muscle. As it closed, Nyra looked back once. Amber eyes steady in the narrowing gap. Tell your bosses, she said softly. The lock is awake. The passage sealed with a final metallic thud. And in the dark ahead, the station's hidden heart beat louder, as if pleased they'd finally come inside. What was waiting in the corridor Elias had been dreaming about for 3 years. The hidden corridor narrowed, then curved, then widened, like it was breathing. Thin amber veins ran through the walls, dim at first, then brightening as Elias took each step. His heat seemed to feed them. The air shimmered faintly around his skin, visible now in the darkness as a mirage. Nyra walked beside him in silence, her posture grounded, controlled. Her presence didn't reduce the heat. It made it behave. Like a fire that stopped flailing when someone finally stood close enough to tend it. Behind them, faint and muffled, corporate voices thudded against the sealed wall, tools scraping, curses, the hollow pop of an impact charge. Elias's breathing tightened. They'll get in. Eventually, Nyra said. So we don't waste time. The corridor ended in a small chamber barely larger than a storage closet. The walls were seamless, grown black metal, smooth as obsidian. In the center stood a pedestal, waist-high, perfectly still. Its surface marked by a shallow indentation shaped like a human hand. Elias stopped so abruptly Nyra nearly brushed his shoulder. No, he whispered. Nyra watched his face. You've seen it. His eyes were wide, reflecting amber light. In dreams. Always before the heat gets worse. Sometimes I wake up with my palm hurting like I pressed it on something hot. Nyra took a slow step toward the pedestal. The amber veins brightened. The air tasted metallic, like static before a storm. Elias backed up a half step. I don't want to touch it. Nyra's voice stayed gentle. Then don't. Not yet. Elias swallowed. You said I make it open. I said you make it respond. Nyra corrected. There's a difference. The pedestal's surface began to glow faintly, not from Nyra's proximity but from Elias's, like it was listening to his pulse, his breath, the fire inside him. Elias's fingers twitched toward his scorched marker strap. My mother used to say some fires aren't meant to be put out. They're meant to be guided. Nyra's amber gaze flicked to him. Did she say who guides them? Elias's voice turned hollow. She said the station would know. Behind them, the sealed wall shuddered as corporate tools found leverage. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Nyra's shoulders tightened. Elias. Consent matters. I won't force you. But if they break in and take you, they'll force you. Elias stared at the handprint indentation. His heat surged in anxious pulses, making the air wobble. The pedestal's glow strengthened, almost eager. Nyra lowered her voice. You don't have to be brave. You just have to be here. Elias laughed once, sharp. I've been here for 3 years. Burning and pretending it's fine. Nyra didn't flinch. Then stop pretending. Elias's breathing slowed. He stepped forward, one careful step, then another, until he stood before the pedestal. The amber veins in the walls flared bright enough to paint his face in warm light. He lifted his hand, hovering above the indentation. Nyra watched his fingers tremble. She didn't reach to steady him. If consent mattered, the steadiness had to be his. Elias swallowed. If this makes it worse. It already is worse, Nyra murmured. He pressed his palm down. The pedestal didn't feel hot. It felt alive. Warm in a way that matched the heat inside him, not as burning but as recognition. Elias gasped as something clicked inside his chest, attention releasing. Amber light surged up the pedestal, through his arm, across the walls like lightning searching for its path. Nyra's scales shimmered. Her horns cast long shadows that curved like crescents. A seam opened in the chamber wall, silent, smooth, revealing a second door, taller, older, inscribed with symbols that made Elias's datapad projection look like child's scribbles. The symbols drifted, rearranging themselves as if trying to be read. Elias's eyes went glassy. I understand it. Nyra's voice sharpened. Read it. Elias swallowed, then spoke, words spilling without translation. Burner line detected. Bloodline interrupted. Return for calibration. Nyra's jaw clenched. Calibration. The wall behind them exploded inward. A concussive blast punched the chamber, throwing dust and shards of plating. Nyra spun, body automatically between Elias and the breach. Corporate troopers poured in through the torn opening, visors down, rifles raised, their armor marked with the clean insignia of Oversight. A voice boomed through a speaker. Subject acquired. Stand down. Nyra didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. Leave, she said. The troopers hesitated, just a fraction, then advanced anyway, rifles tightening. Elias's heat spiked violently at the sight of them. The amber veins in the walls flared in response, and the ancient door's symbols brightened like eyes opening. Nyra felt the station's attention focus, heavy, deliberate. One trooper fired. The energy bolt bent midair, curving away from Nyra like it had hit an invisible slope. It slammed into the ceiling instead, showering sparks. The trooper swore. What the? Nyra's amber eyes narrowed, and the air around her shifted, pressure like deep water. Last chance, she said softly. Corporate didn't take chances. They took assets. They fired again. A volley. The bolts warped, scattered, dissolved, some striking their own plating, others vanishing into the wall like swallowed light. Elias stared, shaking. It's protecting you. Nyra's voice dropped, barely audible. It's protecting the door. The ancient door opened a crack, just enough to spill cold, mineral air and a low, harmonic hum that made Elias's teeth ache. Nyra grabbed Elias's wrist. Move! They rushed toward the opening as troopers shouted and scrambled, suddenly afraid of something that wasn't on their briefings. Nyra shoved Elias through the crack first. As she followed, she heard a new sound behind the corporate shouting, an answering hum from deep in the station's bones, like something enormous shifting in sleep. The doors sealed behind them with a whisper, leaving corporate on the wrong side. Leaving Nyra and Elias in a deeper corridor where the air tasted like stone and old lightning. And on the wall ahead, symbols wrote themselves into a question. Why did you stop? Elias's breath caught. Stop what? Nyra's eyes glowed brighter. Stop the bloodline, she murmured. Your mother didn't die. She interrupted something. And somewhere far below, the station hummed like it had been waiting to explain. What did Elias's family break, and what did the station want, calibrated? The corridor sloped downward, but not like stairs. Like gravity itself had been tilted. Elias's stomach lurched as his body adjusted, heat pulsing in uneasy rhythms. Nyra walked close, a steady presence. The amber veins in the walls dimmed to a patient glow, guiding them. They reached a circular door with no handle. Only a ring of symbols that rotated slowly like a lock dreaming. Elias approached without thinking. The symbols accelerated, aligning as his heat flared. The door irised open. Inside was an archive. Not shelves and paper. Columns of black glass rising into darkness, each column filled with floating motes of light like trapped fireflies. The air was colder here, crisp and mineral. Every sound echoed as if the space was larger than it should fit inside a station. Elias stepped in and gasped. "This isn't on any kettle line schematic." Nyra's eyes tracked the columns. "It's not meant to be." As Elias passed the nearest column, a mote of light detached and drifted toward his forehead. He flinched, but it didn't strike. It hovered, then unfolded into a thin ribbon of symbols. Elias's lips parted. "It's speaking." Nyra's scales glimmered. "Read." Elias spoke, voice shaking. "Burner line project, human interface. Status failed." Nyra's jaw tightened. "Project." Another mode drifted out, unfolding. Elias read faster now, the words pouring through him like remembered language. Compatibility low. Heat escalation unstable. Host deaths, August 9th. Elias went pale. 8. Nyra's gaze snapped to him. "How many generations did you say this ran?" Elias swallowed. "My mother traced it to 9. Nyra's voice went quiet. 8 out of 9. A third ribbon unfolded. Interruption event, subject. Elias's voice faltered. The symbols shifted, correcting. Subject M. He blinked hard. "It won't show the name." Nyra moved closer, eyes narrowing. "Try again." Elias's heat surged, and the symbols stabilized. His voice came out hoarse. Subject M interrupted transfer. Lockdown initiated. Key residue left in marker object. Elias stared at his scorched strap like it had betrayed him. "My mother left, residue." Nyra's posture tightened. "So corporate knew your bloodline was part of an experiment. They monitored her. They waited for you to ignite." Elias's hands shook. "I'm not an experiment." Nyra's gaze held his. "They treated you like one." "That's different." The archive hummed, low, harmonic. More motes drifted, drawn to Elias like moths to flame. One unfolded into an image, flickering hollow memory, of a woman with Elias's eyes, older, sweating, her skin flushed as if fevered. She pressed a scorched leather strip to a pedestal and whispered something with desperate calm. Elias's throat tightened. "That's her." Nyra watched the image with a stillness that looked like restraint. The woman's mouth formed words, but no sound came through. Elias leaned closer, heat rising, and suddenly he heard it, not with ears, but with bone. "Don't let them make you a fuse." The image cut out. Elias stumbled back, breathing hard. "A fuse?" Nyra's eyes flicked over the archive. "Burner line. Interface. Transfer." She exhaled slowly. "They weren't curing anyone. They were trying to build a bridge, human heat as ignition for a buried system." Elias's voice cracked. "Why my family?" Nyra's expression softened by a fraction. "Because bloodlines are stable patterns. Easier to replicate. Easier to farm." Elias looked like he might vomit. The archive answered his panic with new symbols, harsh and direct. Calibration required. Failure imminent. A tremor ran through the floor. Dust lifted in slow spirals. Nyra's head snapped up. "That wasn't corporate." Elias's heat spiked, and the archive lights flared bright. A new ribbon unfolded, urgent. Oversight breaching outer seals. Nyra's jaw set. "They're cutting their way in." Another tremor. Stronger. Elias clutched his chest. "It's getting hotter." Nyra stepped close, voice low. "Elias. Listen to me. The station wants calibration. That means it wants the heat stabilized. Not exploding. Elias stared at her. How do I stabilize a fire inside my bones? Nyra's gaze flicked to the columns, to Moat's swirling. We find the missing step your mother interrupted. Elias's lips trembled. And if the missing step is... killing me? Nyra's eyes, inviting and dangerous, held his. Then we changed the step. A column near them suddenly cracked, hairline fractures spidering through black glass. Motes leaked out in a rush, swirling around Elias like a storm. Nyra's scales flared with goose flesh as the air warmed rapidly. Elias's heat roared. The archive's lights stuttered. Then a new figure appeared at the archive entrance, framed by the circular door, white coat, clean posture, eyes bright with controlled hunger. Corporate Oversight didn't send troopers first anymore. They sent someone who thought of troopers as tools. The figure smiled like a knife. Elias Voss, they said warmly. You've found the archive. Excellent. Nyra stepped between them, body calm, gaze sharp. And you are? The figure inclined their head. Director Sile Corin. Steward of Kettleline's buried assets. Elias's breath hitched. The name wasn't in his dreams. It was in his mother's journal margins, scribbled like a curse. Nyra's voice went quiet. You monitored his mother. Corin's smile widened. Of course. We miss her dearly. She was uncooperative. Elias's heat surged so hard the air shimmered violently. What did you do to her? Corin spread their hands. We offered her purpose. She declined. She chose death. Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. Liar. Corin's gaze slid to Nyra's horns, lingering. And you, they said, voice turning curious. What an unexpected variable. The archive trembled again. Deep structural. Corin's smile turned delighted. Ah, they murmured. The system is waking. Elias's chest burned like a star about to crack. Nyra's hand closed around his wrist, anchoring. And Corin stepped forward into the archive as if it belonged to them. Come, Corin said softly. Let's finish the calibration your mother refused. Finish it, or survive it? Director Corin walked between the archive columns like they were touring a museum they'd paid to curate. Their white coat didn't flutter, their composure didn't bend. Nyra didn't move aside. She held her ground with quiet inevitability. Elias hovered behind her shoulder, heat rolling off him in waves now, visible in the air. Corin stopped 3 paces away. Close enough to talk. Far enough to avoid being touched. Smart. Elias, Corin said, voice gentle. You're frightened. That's understandable. Your condition is accelerating. Elias swallowed, voice raw. You did this to my family. Corin's eyes softened with practiced empathy. We did this for your family. The burner line was designed to grant stability, extended lifespans, resilience, adaptation. Your mother was a prototype who refused full integration. Nyra's voice cut in, flat. You call death refusal. Corin's gaze slid to her. I call it consequence. The archive hummed louder. A crack widened in a nearby column. Motes spilled out like sparks. Elias flinched. His heat surged, answering the instability like a flare seeking oxygen. Corin watched it with interest. See? The system wants completion. Without calibration, your heat will rupture. And when it ruptures... Corin glanced upward, as if seeing through the station. Kettleline will notice. Elias's face went pale. It'll explode? Corin's smile returned. Perhaps not explosively. More like cascading failure? Fires. Pressure drops. Panic. The usual. Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. You're threatening the station to force him. Corin sighed, as if disappointed. I'm stating reality. The burner line is linked to buried systems. Your friend here can feel that, yes? Nyra didn't answer. Her silence was enough. Corin turned back to Elias. You have a choice, come with me, undergo controlled calibration, live. Or resist, destabilize, and die, possibly taking thousands with you. Elias's hands shook. Controlled by you. Steward, Corin corrected. Nyra leaned slightly toward Elias. This is a cage with polite words. Corin's smile tightened. And this is why we don't involve unauthorized entities. Nyra's posture didn't change. But the archive's amber veins brightened along the floor around her boots, as if offended on her behalf. Corin's eyes flicked down. Interesting. The system recognizes you as compatible. Nyra's jaw tightened. I'm not your variable. No, Corin said softly. You're the solution your mother never had. Elias blinked. What does that mean? Corin's gaze held Elias's, then slid to Nyra. Humans burn too fast. Your family line proved it. The system needs a stabilizer, something that can contain the heat without rupturing. Nyra's scales prickled. She already knew where this was going. She hated that she knew. Corin smiled. A stronger chassis. Elias's voice cracked. You mean her? Nyra's eyes went cold. No. Corin's tone stayed calm. We don't need her consent, they said, like discussing a tool. We need her proximity. The system has already begun linking. It will. Nyra moved. Not a lunge. A precise step that put her within arm's reach of Corin. Her amber gaze burned. Corin didn't flinch. Ah, they murmured, pleased. There's the storm. Nyra's fingers hovered inches from Corin's throat, not touching. A warning without contact. Say the word need again, she said softly, and you'll learn what I do to people who mistake me for property. The archive hummed in resonance with her voice, a low agreement. Corin's smile didn't waver. Threats are unproductive. Elias stumbled forward, eyes bright with panic. Stop! Both of you, please! His heat spiked violently at the strain, and the archive reacted. A column shattered with a loud crack, releasing a surge of motes that swarmed toward Elias's chest. Nyra spun toward him. Elias, breathe! He tried. The heat roared louder. The motes didn't burn him. They sank into him, feeding, accelerating, like fuel poured into flame. Elias screamed, clutching his ribs. Corin's voice sharpened. Now you understand urgency. His rupture is imminent. We can still stabilize him. Nyra grabbed Elias's wrist, feeling the heat hammer through his pulse like a second heart. Her own skin warmed, luminous, deeper, scales gleaming. The archive veins flared under her boots. Nyra looked at Corin. What is calibration? Corin's eyes gleamed. A transfer. A sharing. The heat must be split into a vessel that can endure it. Nyra's jaw clenched. Like absorption. Corin's smile widened. Exactly. Elias looked up at Nyra, eyes wild. No. I won't do that to you. Nyra's gaze softened for a heartbeat. You didn't ask for this. Corin lifted a small device from their pocket, sleek, black, humming. Consent is a luxury, they said. And luxuries end when systems fail. They clicked the device. The archive's amber veins snapped bright, then shifted, repatterning like a net tightening. Nyra felt it instantly, the station trying to bind her, to align her body with the buried system's pull. Her horns tingled. Her skin glowed faintly. The air thickened. Elias gasped. Nyra! Nyra planted her feet, grounded, refusing. Don't you dare! Corin's eyes glittered. The system doesn't care about your pride. It cares about survival. And you, Nyra, are the only stabilizer in reach. The net tightened. Nyra's arms began to lift, slowly, against her will, pulled toward Elias as if the station itself wanted her hands on him. Elias shook his head violently. Stop! I don't consent! For a heartbeat, the archive paused. Like it had heard the word. Nyra's eyes widened. It listens. Corin's smile faltered for the first time. It. Nyra seized the moment. She forced her voice into calm authority, directing it at the archive itself. He said no, Nyra said clearly. I say no. We do not calibrate by force. The amber veins trembled. Elias, shaking, whispered the words again like a prayer. No. The net loosened, just slightly. Corin's face tightened, anger flashing. Then you'll both die stupidly. Nyra's gaze hardened. Or we'll find the missing step your mother used. Corin's eyes narrowed. There was no missing step. There was sabotage. Nyra's voice dropped. Then show me. Corin smiled again, thin and cruel. Gladly. They tapped the device once more. A column at the far end of the archive unfolded, revealing a sealed compartment, and inside it, suspended in black glass like an insect in amber, was a scorched leather marker strip identical to Elias's. Only this one had a corporate tag attached. Property of Oversight. Subject M. Elias's breath caught. My mother's. Corin's smile turned triumphant. Yes. And we kept it. Because everything you need is already here. Nyra's chest tightened as the archive hummed louder, preparing to act, whether they wanted it or not. What was Oversight about to do with the last piece of Elias's mother, and could Nyra stop a station from completing its own design? Corin approached the sealed compartment like a priest approaching an altar. The device in their hand hummed in sympathy with the archive. Amber veins brightened, drawing lines toward the compartment, as if mapping a route. Elias shook, eyes locked on the corporate tagged marker strip. You kept it, he whispered. You kept her like evidence. Corin didn't look back. We kept the catalyst. Your mother was short-sighted. She thought interrupting the process would save you. Instead, she condemned you to slow rupture. Nyra's voice went cold. You condemned him the moment you decided families were lab equipment. Corin turned slightly, smile small. Morality is for species with time. Elias's heat surged again, and Nyra felt it throb through the air. His face was flushed now, sweat at his hairline, the shimmer around him constant. Nyra stepped closer to him, anchoring her presence. Look at me, she murmured. Breathe with me. In. Out. Elias tried. The heat eased by a fraction, enough for his eyes to focus. Corin lifted the corporate marker strip and pressed it against a nearby column. The black glass softened, accepted it. The strip slid inside as if being swallowed. The archive responded immediately. Symbols raced along the columns, assembling into a pattern across the floor, concentric rings, lines that linked Elias's pedestal chamber memory to this space. Nyra felt the pull again, subtle but insistent, like gravity leaning toward a conclusion. Corin's voice turned reverent. Calibration begins. Elias's hands curled into fists. No. Corin ignored him. The burner line must split. Heat becomes manageable when shared. Your bloodline failed because there was no compatible vessel present when ignition began. Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. So you engineered the ignition anyway. Corin smiled. Of course. Nyra's scales glimmered as anger rose, but she kept her tone steady. Elias. Your mother left residue in your marker. She made the station listen to you, not Oversight. Elias's breath hitched. I don't know how. You do, Nyra said softly. Your dreams were training. Corin's eyes flicked to Nyra, irritation sharpening. Stop romanticizing. This is machinery. Nyra looked at Corin. Everything that matters is machinery to people who don't want to feel. Corin's smile tightened. Enough. They tapped their device, and the archive's amber veins surged, forming a light net that snapped around Elias's torso, pinning his arms close. Elias cried out, heat spiking as panic surged. Nyra lunged, one step, and the net's edge brushed her skin. It didn't burn. It recognized her. The net adjusted, threads shifting to include her like she'd always been part of the pattern. Nyra froze, feeling the station's insistence, stabilize. Elias struggled. Nyra, don't! Corin watched with satisfied hunger. There. Compatibility confirmed. Nyra's jaw clenched. She forced her voice low, directed at the archive, not Corin. We do this willingly, she said. Or we don't do it at all. The net trembled. Hesitated. Corin's eyes widened. It's responding to you. Nyra's gaze stayed on Elias. Say it, she whispered. Say what you want. Elias's voice shook, but it was clear. I want to live. But I won't take you with me unless you choose it. Nyra felt the net soften a fraction, as if pleased by the shape of consent. Corin snarled, losing patience. Fine. Then choose quickly. A tremor ran through the archive, stronger than before. Somewhere above, far away, the station groaned. Nyra's eyes narrowed. What was that? Corin's smile returned, cruel. Oversight has cut into outer seals. If you don't calibrate now, they'll extract you by force and do it without your sentimental conditions. Elias's heat surged, and Nyra felt it now like a second heartbeat. She could also feel something else. Beneath Elias's heat, beneath the archive's hum, a deep resonance, like a larger system waking with interest. Nyra leaned closer to Elias. If I take some of it, she murmured, I need you to promise me something. Elias swallowed. Anything. Stay, Nyra said. If it tries to pull me away from myself, you pull me back with your voice. Don't let me become their tool. Elias's eyes shone. He nodded hard. I promise. Corin exhaled, impatient. Enough. Place your hands together. Nyra glanced at Corin. I don't take instructions from you. Then she turned to Elias. She extended her hand, palm up, an offer, not a grab. Elias stared at it like it was a bridge over fire. Then he placed his trembling hand in hers. The moment skin met skin, the heat moved. Not a flood at first, more like a curious living thing testing a new container. Nyra gasped as warmth shot up her arm, settling in her chest like a coal. Her midnight blue skin glowed subtly from within, scales along her collarbone catching the light like stars. Elias shuddered, eyes squeezing shut. It's moving! Nyra's teeth clenched as the heat pressed against her, painful, but not destructive. Her body was built to endure. Her mind had to be. The archive symbols brightened, circling them. The net loosened, because the station liked cooperation. Corin watched, delighted. Yes. Yes. Split it. Stabilize. Become useful. Nyra's voice came out strained. Shut up. Elias breathed hard. Nyra, it hurts. I know, she whispered. Stay with me. Talk. Elias swallowed, forcing words out like anchors. Your name is Nyra. You like tea even though you pretend you don't. You hate being cornered. You sat down because you chose to. Nyra's chest tightened as the heat surged stronger, trying to rewrite her body's rhythm. She held on to Elias's words like handholds. The archive hummed deeper. A new symbol formed above them, hovering in light. Transfer accepted. Corin's smile turned ravenous. Now we finalize. They raised the device again, preparing to lock the transfer permanently. Nyra's eyes narrowed. Finalize how? Corin's voice went soft. By ensuring the stabilizer cannot leave. Nyra felt the net tighten, threads aiming to bind her to the archive, to make her a permanent component. Elias's eyes flew open. No! Nyra's voice cut through the hum, calm storm sharpened into command. Archive, she said. Consent required. The net trembled, hesitated again. Corin's face twisted. It's a machine! Nyra's amber eyes blazed. Then it's a machine that learns something your employers never did. She tightened her grip on Elias's hand. Elias. Pull. He didn't understand, then he did. He yanked their joined hands toward his chest, not away, together. The transfer surged, But so did the station's confusion, two wills, aligned, refusing to be separated. The archive lights flared. And somewhere deep beneath the archive, a door that wasn't on any map began to open, slow, heavy. Answering not Corin's device, but Nyra and Elias's shared refusal. What had they just awakened? Something that could save them, or something Oversight had been afraid to let speak. The floor vibrated like a drum struck far away. Corin froze mid-gesture, device raised, eyes narrowing. That's not part of calibration. Nyra felt it in her bones, a deeper resonance beneath the archive's hum, older and heavier, like a second station hidden inside the first. Elias clung to her hand, knuckles white. His heat still flowed into her impulses, but it had changed. Less wild, more patterned, like it was listening to the new rhythm below. A seam appeared in the archive floor. Not a crack. A deliberate line unzipping. Amber light spilled up, and cold mineral air rose like breath from a cavern. Corin's face tightened with sudden fear. No. No, close. Nyra's eyes narrowed. You know what that is? Corin's smile tried to return and failed. It's an access layer. Restricted. Elias's voice came out hoarse. My mother interrupted transfer to keep me from becoming a fuse. Did she open that? Corin's jaw clenched. She tried. She died before she could finish. Nyra felt Elias's grip tighten. Grief surged through his heat, and Nyra absorbed a fragment of it, sharp, intimate, like swallowing someone else's memory. Corin stepped back, raising their device again, this time not to finalize, but to override. Stand away from the seam. Nyra didn't move. Consent required, she repeated, and the archive lights brightened as if agreeing. Corin's eyes flicked to the columns, calculating. Fine. If the archive won't cooperate, Oversight will. They tapped a comm implant at their ear. Breach team, accelerate. I want the subjects extracted in. Nyra moved. Not toward Corin's throat this time, toward the device. She crossed the distance in 2 controlled steps and snapped her hand around Corin's wrist, twisting with precision. The device clattered to the floor. Corin hissed, eyes flaring with anger. You'll regret. Nyra didn't hit them. She didn't need violence for dominance. She simply leaned in, eyes amber and steady. You're done. Corin's smile turned ugly. You think you can hold the station against us? Nyra released their wrist and nudged them backward toward a column. I think you're afraid of what's under here. The seam widened into an opening large enough to swallow a person. A platform rose smoothly from below, black metal, glowing veins, like an elevator grown rather than built. Elias stared down, breath frosting. That's the place from my dreams. Nyra's voice softened, strained by the heat in her chest. Then your dreams were a map. Corin snarled and lunged for the fallen device. Nyra's heel pinned it. No. Corin's eyes flicked to Elias, then to Nyra, then to the open seam. A decision sharpened their posture. If I can't finalize stabilization, I'll remove the stabilizer. They reached into their coat and pulled a compact injector, sleek, clinical. Elias flinched. What is that? Corin smiled, thin. A leash. For compatible assets. Nyra's scales prickled. She felt the archive's veins tighten, uncertain. Elias's heat surged in panic. Nyra made a choice faster than thought. She stepped between Corin and Elias and extended her hand, not for the injector, but to Elias. Come, she said. Elias didn't hesitate. He stepped onto the rising platform with her, still holding her hand. The heat between them surged, but it was more stable now, shared, contained. Corin lunged after them as the platform began to descend. Nyra looked down at Corin, calm as a storm front. Tell Oversight, she said softly. The fuse walked away. Corin's face twisted with rage. They threw the injector like a dart. Nyra turned, too late to dodge. But the injector hit an invisible barrier at the platform's edge and snapped in half, fragments falling into the seam like dead insects. The platform sank. The archive ceiling rose away. Corin's voice echoed down after them, sharp with desperation. You don't understand what you're opening. It's not a heart, it's a weapon. Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. Then why are you so scared of it? The platform descended into darkness lit by slow amber veins. The air grew colder, heavier. The vibration became a steady pulse, like a giant heartbeat. Elias's breathing shook. Nyra, what if I can't control it? What if the heat? Nyra squeezed his hand. Her own chest burned, but she held herself steady. Then we control it together. Below them, a cavernous chamber emerged, vast, ribbed with black metal arches, glowing veins converging toward a central structure, a sphere suspended in the air, wrapped in luminous filaments. Elias stared, mouth open. That's... Nyra felt the heat in her chest answer the sphere, and the sphere answered back with a low hum that vibrated her bones. Symbols formed in the air, slow, deliberate, visible without a datapad. Burner line detected. Stabilizer detected. Elias whispered, trembling. It knows us. Nyra's voice came quiet, almost reverent. It's been waiting. A new line of symbols wrote itself, colder. Calibration, incomplete. Oversight, contamination. Purge required. Elias's blood went cold. Purge what? Nyra's gaze lifted toward the distant ceiling, toward the archive, toward the station full of people who had no idea a buried system had just asked a question with teeth. And the sphere pulsed once, hard, as if ready to answer itself. If the buried heart decided to purge, oversight, what else would it erase in the process? The sphere's filaments brightened, and Nyra felt the impulse behind the word purge, not anger, not malice, but a machine's clean solution to contamination. Oversight was a toxin. Remove toxin. Restore function. Machines didn't count bodies as people. Elias did. He stumbled forward, heat flaring, voice cracking. No! You can't. There are civilians. Families. Workers. They're not contamination. The symbols paused, as if processing. Nyra stepped beside him, grounding. Her chest burned with the shared coal, but she forced calm into her tone. We agree oversight is the problem, she said, directing the words at the sphere as if it could hear spoken language as well as heat. But purge by fire kills more than infection. The sphere hummed, and the filaments rearranged. New symbols formed. Oversight controls signals present in upper systems. Purge removes signals. Nyra's eyes narrowed. Not good enough. Elias swallowed hard, staring at the floating script. It thinks in yes/no. Cut/keep. Nyra's gaze held the sphere. Then we teach it a third option. Elias looked at her, desperate. How? Nyra lifted her hand to her own chest, feeling the heat coiled there, no longer solely his, not yet solely hers. Shared. Patterned. Calibration isn't just transfer, she murmured. It's negotiation. Above them, faintly, alarms began to wail, distant through layers of metal. Oversight had noticed the archive's deeper layers opening. They'd be mobilizing, sealing corridors, flooding compartments. Elias's breath hitched. They'll hurt people to get us back. Nyra nodded once. So we move first. She stepped closer to the sphere. The filaments reached toward her like curious fingers. Her scales glimmered as the light touched them, and the heat in her chest answered in a slow pulse. Elias grabbed her wrist. Nyra, don't let it take you. Nyra's amber eyes softened. I'm not offering myself, she said. I'm offering a model. She turned to the sphere and spoke clearly. Linked to me. Limited. Consent-based. The sphere's hum deepened. Filaments brushed Nyra's fingertips. The sensation wasn't physical touch so much as data tasting her skin, reading her pattern. Nyra felt images flicker in her mind, corridors, engines, vents, the station's whole circulatory system. She could feel Oversight nodes, cold, sharp, invasive. She also felt civilians, warm, chaotic, alive, moving in panic at the edges of alarms. Nyra's jaw tightened. She forced the thought into the link, do not harm them. The sphere responded with a question written in her skull. Why not? Nyra's throat tightened. She didn't answer with philosophy. She answered with something simpler, something even machines could map. Because they are not the thing that broke you, she said aloud. Elias stepped in beside her, heat flaring. He placed his hand over hers. His voice shook, but it held. Because they're like me, he whispered. They didn't choose to be born into your system. They just live here. The sphere's filaments brightened around their joined hands. Nyra felt a shift, tiny, but real, like the system had just added a new variable, unintended harm. Symbols formed. Purge parameters adjustable. Define target. Nyra exhaled slowly. Good. Elias swallowed. Target oversight only. The sphere hummed. A new symbol appeared, sharp. Oversight, distributed. Nyra's eyes narrowed. It's everywhere. Elias's face tightened. Then we cut the signal at the source. Nyra's mind, linked, saw it instantly. Oversight's command core wasn't in the archive. It was above, embedded in the station's public systems, an anchor node that broadcast control codes, including the binding net Corin tried to use. Nyra felt anger rise. Not hot, but cold. Corin. Elias's heat pulsed, grief and fury intertwined. They have my mother's marker strip tagged like property. Nyra looked at the sphere. Can you isolate Oversight's anchor node without purging the station? The sphere hummed, slower. Symbols formed. Yes. Requires calibration complete. Elias's voice went small. Complete means splitting the heat fully. Nyra felt the coal in her chest flare, and for a heartbeat it scared her, not pain, but what it meant. If she took too much, her life would accelerate the way Elias's did. Burn brighter. Live faster. Die sooner. Elias stared at her, reading the fear she tried to hide. No, he whispered. I won't let you. Nyra's gaze held his. You're not letting me. I'm choosing. Elias's eyes shone. It's not fair. Nyra's lips curved faintly. Fair died in the war. Above, the alarms sharpened. A distant shockwave rolled through the station, Oversight sealing bulkheads, venting sections, forcing civilians to funnel where they wanted. Nyra's link showed it, corridors closing like jaws. Elias looked up, face pale. They're trapping people. Nyra's voice went quiet steel. Then we finish calibration on our terms, fast. Elias swallowed hard. How much do you take? Nyra glanced down at their joined hands, then up at him. Enough to stabilize you, she said. Not enough to erase me. Elias let out a broken laugh. That's not how fire works. Nyra's eyes narrowed. Then we make it work differently. She looked at the sphere and spoke one clear command grounded in will. Split the burner line between us. Evenly. Consent logged. Elias's voice joined hers, shaking but firm. Consent logged. The sphere pulsed once, like a heartbeat agreeing. Filaments wrapped their wrists gently, not binding, connecting. Heat surged. Not wild this time. A controlled transfer, like molten metal poured into a mold. Nyra gasped as fire threaded through her veins, her senses sharpening painfully, every sound louder, every light brighter. Elias shuddered as the pressure in his chest eased, his skin cooling by degrees. Symbols formed above them. Calibration, 50%. Stability improving. Nyra's knees flexed, absorbing the intensity. Elias clung to her hand, eyes wide with relief and guilt. Nyra forced her voice steady. No, she whispered. Cut the anchor. The sphere hummed. And in Nyra's linked perception, she felt the system reach upward, toward Oversight's core, like a hand sliding under a parasite to peel it away. Above them, the station screamed, metal groaning, lights flickering, as if Oversight had just realized something beneath them was about to reclaim its own body. Would the anchor cut clean, or would Oversight tear the station apart to keep its grip? The sphere's filaments flared bright, and Nyra felt the reach, precise, surgical, threading up through the station's guts toward Oversight's anchor node. It wasn't a purge. It was a disconnection. For a breath, Nyra felt hope. Then the station convulsed. A violent jolt threw Elias against her shoulder. Nyra caught him automatically, bracing with legs like rooted steel. The shared heat in her chest surged in response, trying to stabilize her body as the world shook. Above, somewhere far away, something exploded, sound traveling through structure as a deep, tearing boom. Elias gasped. They're detonating charges. Nyra's linked perception confirmed it. Oversight, realizing it was about to be cut off, was ripping its own anchor free, like a parasite chewing through tissue rather than being removed. The sphere's symbols flashed urgent. Anchor resisting. Structural damage increasing. Nyra clenched her jaw. Corin, she whispered. Elias's face twisted. They'll kill everyone before they lose control. Nyra's eyes burned. Not if we beat them to the cut. The filaments tightened gently around Nyra and Elias's wrists, no longer just connecting, but stabilizing them against the station's spasms. Nyra felt the system asking without words, more heat. More stability. Elias shook his head, terror in his eyes. Nyra, no. Nyra met his gaze, calm storm barely holding together. I can take more, she said softly. You can't. Not right now. Elias's eyes filled. You'll burn. Nyra's lips curved faintly. I already am. She turned her attention inward, into the shared coal, and opened herself a fraction wider. Not surrender. Control. Heat poured into her stronger. Her midnight blue skin glowed from within, scales along her collarbone and cheekbones shimmering like stars. The world sharpened until it hurt. Every hum of the sphere, every distant scream of metal, every frantic civilian heartbeat above. Elias shuddered as his heat eased further, his breath finally deepening. Nyra, stop! Nyra's voice came out strained. Talk to me, she demanded. Anchor me. Elias swallowed hard, forcing words through guilt. You're Nyra. You walked into the tin cup like it owed you space. You hate Oversight. You don't belong to anyone. You chose me when you didn't have to. Nyra's chest burned, but Elias's voice held her shape. The sphere pulsed, stabilizing with her increased capacity. Symbols flashed. Calibration, 62%. Anchor cut probability rising. Above, Oversight's response escalated. Bulkheads slammed shut, venting alarms screamed, civilians funneled toward choke points. Nyra felt it all, and her stomach twisted with the weight of so many lives. She pushed a thought into the link, protect them. The sphere answered with action. Corridor lights shifted to amber arrows, ventilation flows rerouted, pressure equalized, gentle guidance through chaos. Elias stared upward, tears on his cheeks. It's helping. Nyra nodded once, jaw clenched. Because it can finally feel them. Another tremor, harder. The station groaned like bone cracking. The sphere's symbols flashed. Anchor moving. Oversight attempting detachment. Nyra's eyes narrowed. They're trying to rip their core out and flee. Elias's voice went sharp. Let them go. Nyra shook her head. If they flee with the anchor, the station stays infected. The burner line stays unstable. Your bloodline stays a fuse waiting to ignite again. Elias swallowed, understanding dawning like cold. So we have to cut it now. Nyra's voice dropped into quiet command. Do it. The sphere hummed, deep, focused. Filaments extended upward, invisible lines threading through layers of metal. Then a new presence flooded Nyra's linked perception. Cold, sharp, human-made control codes forcing their way downward. Corin's voice burst into the chamber through hidden speakers, distorted but triumphant. You can't remove what's fused into the station without killing it. Nyra's eyes flared. Watch me. Corin's tone turned gleeful. If Oversight loses the anchor, this place wakes fully. And if it wakes fully, it purges everything not in its original design, including your precious mixed species truce. Including you? Elias went pale. Nyra. Nyra's jaw clenched. Is that true? She demanded into the link, aiming the question at the sphere. The sphere paused. Symbols formed slowly. Original design, and no inhuman. Elias's breath hitched. It wasn't built for humans. Nyra felt the weight of it, an ancient system older than the treaty, older than the war. Humans and Carrick and everyone else were passengers on something not meant for them. Corin's voice whispered like a knife. Cut the anchor, and you unleash it. Let Oversight keep control and you save the station's normal. Choose. Nyra stared at the sphere, chest burning with shared heat, mind stretched between lives and systems. Elias's hand squeezed hers. Nyra, he whispered, shaking. Whatever you choose, don't let them make it for us. Nyra exhaled slowly. She felt the station's civilians like a constellation of fragile lights. She felt Oversight's anchor like a black thorn. She felt the buried system's hunger for purity like cold logic. And she realized the third option wasn't just, don't purge. It was teach it to include. Nyra's voice went low, steady. Sphere, she said. New parameter. Humans and Carrick are not contamination. They are now part of the design. The chamber went very still. Elias stared at her. Can it even? Nyra's amber gaze didn't waver. It learned consent. It can learn belonging. The sphere's filaments trembled, processing. Corin laughed. You're trying to rewrite an ancient machine with feelings. Nyra's voice sharpened. I'm rewriting it with calibration. She squeezed Elias's hand. Say it with me. Elias swallowed, then spoke, voice shaking but clear. We belong. Nyra echoed, stronger. We belong. The sphere pulsed, once, twice, like a heart deciding. Symbols formed. Design update pending. Require complete calibration. Nyra's breath caught. Complete meant more heat. More acceleration. More burning. Elias shook his head, tears spilling. No. That's too much. Nyra looked at him, and for the first time her calm storm showed the cost in her eyes. Then we die anyway, she whispered. Or we live in a station ruled by parasites. Above them, Oversight's anchor throbbed, about to detach. Nyra lifted her chin, jaw set. Complete it, she said. And the filaments tightened, preparing to pour the remaining fire into her, while the station held its breath, waiting to see if a new design could be written in time. Could Nyra survive becoming the stabilizer? Long enough to change what the station considered contamination? The heat didn't surge like an explosion. It flowed. A final, heavy pour, molten, controlled, threading into Nyra's chest as the filaments brightened and the sphere hummed with a note so deep it vibrated her bones. Her midnight blue skin glowed brighter, luminous as moonlit ocean glass. Obsidian scales along her cheekbones and collarbone shone like constellations. Her breath hitched, then steadied, as if her body had decided it would endure because she demanded it. Elias cried out as his own heat eased, shoulders sagging, lungs finally filling without fire. His skin cooled from fever flush to human pale, the shimmer around him fading to almost nothing. Nyra's knees flexed. Her heartbeat accelerated, too fast, too intense, like a life forced to run at a higher speed. She tasted metal. She tasted light. Elias grabbed her arm, frantic. Nyra, stop, please. Nyra's voice came out rough, but steady. Talk, she ordered. Anchor me. Elias swallowed hard, eyes wet. He looked at her horns, her glowing skin, her controlled trembling. Then he spoke like each word was a rope. You're Nyra. You chose to sit beside me. You chose to fight Oversight. You hate cages. You don't break just because it hurts. Nyra's chest burned. But Elias's voice kept her inside her own skin. The sphere's symbols flashed bright. Calibration complete. Design update accepted. Nyra exhaled, shaking. Now, cut the anchor. The sphere hummed, and in Nyra's linked perception she felt it, an invisible hand closing around Oversight's thorn. Not yanking. Not ripping. Peeling with surgical care. Above, the station convulsed as Oversight tried to flee. Corin's voice burst through speakers, suddenly frantic. No! You'll destabilize the treaty sectors, stop! Nyra's amber eyes narrowed. You're scared. Corin snarled. Because you're making it think it loves you! Nyra's voice dropped to a calm that felt like an ending. No, she said. I'm making it recognize reality. The sphere pulsed once. And the anchor snapped, not violently, but cleanly. In Nyra's mind, Oversight's control codes shrieked like severed nerves, then went silent. A wave of relief rolled through the station's hidden veins. Corridor doors above unlocked. Venting stopped mid-cycle. Amber arrows shifted to green, guiding civilians away from choke points and toward safe corridors. Elias gasped, feeling the change. It stopped hurting the station. Nyra swallowed, breathing through the new heat coiled inside her. Because the parasite is gone. Above, somewhere in the public systems, Corin screamed, faint through structure, as their command network died. Not death. Worse, irrelevance. The sphere wrote one final line of symbols in the air. Oversight removed. Station integrity restored. New design confirmed. Elias's shoulders shook as sob laughter broke out of him. I'm not burning. Nyra watched him carefully, chest tight. Not alone, she corrected. Elias's eyes flicked to her glow, horrified. But you are. Nyra's lips curved faintly, tired, real. Yes. Elias reached for her hand with both of his, gentle as if she were fragile now. How long? Nyra didn't answer immediately. She felt time differently, compressed, intensified. She could sense her own life as a brighter flame than before, burning quicker. But she also felt something else, control. Pattern. The heat wasn't a wildfire anymore. It was a hearth, hot, constant, survivable. Longer than your bloodline had, she said quietly. If I'm careful. Elias shook his head, tears spilling again. I didn't want this. Nyra's gaze softened. Neither did I. Then her eyes sharpened, inviting and dangerous. But wanting isn't the point. Choosing is. The platform beneath them began to rise. Not forced, invited. The sphere's filaments loosened from their wrists, leaving faint amber lines under Nyra's skin like hidden writing. As they ascended toward the archive and the station above, Nyra felt Kettleline's system settle into a new rhythm. Not pure. Not old. Updated. The buried heart accepted the people living in its shell because two living beings had named belonging as a parameter. When the platform reached the archive, the columns had stopped cracking. The motes floated calmly again, like embers banked for the night. At the entrance, troopers waited, confused, weapons lowered, their calms dead without Oversight's orders. They saw Nyra's glow and Elias's calm and didn't know what they were allowed to do. Nyra stepped forward. No shouting. No threats. Just presence. Take us to the nearest med bay, she said. Then take everyone you trapped to safety. You don't need Oversight to know how to help people. The troopers hesitated. Then one nodded, swallowed, and motioned for their team to open a path. Elias leaned close to Nyra, voice trembling. What happens now? Nyra glanced at him, eyes warm like danger you chose. Now we live with it. Elias looked down at his scorched leather marker strap. The edges were cooler. Not healed, but no longer actively burning. He swallowed. My mother said a true scholar always knows where they left off. Nyra's gaze flicked to the strap, then back to him. Then pick up the story? Elias nodded shakily. With you? Nyra's smile was small but real. If you keep anchoring me. Elias squeezed her hand. I will. They walked out of the hidden archive into the station's public corridors, where people were still panicking, but the lights were guiding them now, and the air no longer tasted like imminent fire. Nyra's chest burned, steady, intense, contained. And for the first time in 3 years, Elias didn't feel like a fuse waiting to ruin everyone he touched. He felt like a person with a future. Nyra felt the new heat pulse once between them, not pain, not curse. A bond. As they turned a corner toward the medbay, Nyra heard a faint echo in the station's bones, like the buried heart whispering a new instruction it had learned from them both. Keep going.